place he wants me to go is in Lovecraft Country.
Lovecraft Country, episode 9, Rewind 1921. That was the title of this episode. We're going to review it now. We already did a recap, and there's, of course, also a breakdown on our channel. But in our recap, we already figured out that we have something to discuss because, well, I think you two are a bit more positive about this episode than I am. I'm not negative about this episode, but I have
negative, boss.
I have quite some trouble with this episode. Well, let's just dive right into it. First, shortly, Koen, you already touched on it in the recap. You were quite, especially towards the end of this episode, I think, emotionally involved, right?
Yeah. It's also because for me it helped that it helped a little bit in my imagination that I saw that first episode of Watchmen, the other show, where they start with the massacre of Tulsa, and they use also, if I remember correctly, they use some original footage and some pictures I think they had at the time. So yeah, it was for me very impressive to see that they relive it, and I was very curious how they would do it because it leads up to it. Of course, you saw it already coming. The ending for me was there were a lot of powerful moments in it. Powerful moments for as a woman that Letty goes this epic scene. Like normally there are men always walking through bombs or whatever. And now it was this small little woman. She's a small woman but very powerful. She comes with a book through the fire. Also, she doesn't run. Yeah. She just walks. That was very impressive. The scene between, also the vulnerability scene of two scenes with Montrose. The main scene first was that he sees his father beating him up, and then Tick, of course, seeing why it started. It goes from generation to generation. It was very impressive, and also Letty then saying like, "Oh my God, nobody wants to see this, or I have to do this," and then. You saw Tick looking like, yeah, okay, but I had the same, of course.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, I didn't catch.
And I don't think Letty realized that Tick had the same shit. Even if Tick said it a lot of times, I don't think she realized at that moment. That was interesting. Right. And then, of course, later that Montrose and Tick were standing outside, and actually Tick said, "After this, we're done." And then they came together a bit when Montrose opened up and showed him, man. I even said to my first lover, perhaps, or my first guy I was interested in. I called him a faggot, even because I was too scared and. That's also I had to take all my weakness out of me, and also then turning out, of course, trying to be a man, and then wanting to have a son. It was powerful. It was powerful. So for me,
I get your point, but I want to touch on that later a bit. So if I forget, hold me on it, because I've got something to say, also especially also about Montrose and Tick's scene. But first, Sven, I would like to hear your first introduction to. Your findings about this episode.
Yeah, I think, of course, the twists in this storytelling were sometimes a bit fast or without explanations. I think this is Bas' main point. You can explain yourself, but I had not that many trouble with it because I kind of dig it because. There's a lot of symbolism also in this episode again, where you can, you can use your interpretation through that. And it is true that these really heavy emotional scenes were maybe less intense coming in than with other episodes, for example, especially the really like. The emotion Montrose wants to put or should put or that the writers want to put in this episode because he's really doubting to dive in to go back to this time to relive his trauma. It's on the table and you touch it as a viewer, but it's not that you really get goosebumps out of it or so. No. And if I compared it with the scene that he was finally liberating and coming out of the closet, that for me was then
ballroom scene.
Yeah. But for example, there was I think with the fire and so the scenes with Letty, I found really impressive, and how they did that, and what they did symbolize with the great grandmother, like going up in flames until
that scene
she
was
leaves the
very,
head.
very powerful.
And that for me was really powerful, and that she walks through the streets and through the bombs and with the book and then the poem and the opera music, that was for me really putting it on a higher level, while like they put it back in balance for me. So and I was still then satisfied.
Yeah.
But now I think, Bas, it's your
you say some interesting points what I want to touch on, and I also agree with. To start with, well, what you say, the scene with Larry, with the book, with the opera text. Well, maybe not the opera. I found that maybe a bit too forced again, but especially before, when you just hear the monologue version of that opera, that I found really strong, and there I felt like, wow, that was very powerful and strong.
Yeah.
But what you
fire or so was it? Right?
Yeah, something like that.
From Sonia Sanchez, I think.
Yeah. But what you also said, like, because and I have an explanation for myself why I think some scenes, because I also didn't feel so much emotion that I thought I should feel with certain scenes. So I was asking myself the question, why is it that is? And I do have an explanation for that, because I was already a bit turned off since the beginning of this episode, because I think things went wrong there. But to catch into your point, Koen, about Montrose's scenes, I also felt a bit flat there, while I was feeling a lot with especially Montrose's scenes in earlier episodes.
Why?
But I think that is because we already, what we saw now, we already lived. This was no new stuff for Montrose. We just saw it literally now. But this whole story, we already felt. It was already explained. It was in himself. We saw his struggles. We knew what he was struggling with. And to see it now literally spelled out, for me, didn't add anything. That's why I feel like, I get it. But we already went through this. The same as Tick being in a fight with his father for being drunk and everything again. Like, we're repeating story beats here. This is not pushing the story forward. This is just, writing it out for us. Like, I don't need it written out, because I already knew this more or less without it being shown to me. So that's for me, I think, why I felt a bit like, I don't feel it as much, because this has already been communicated to me.
Yeah,
I didn't need this spelled out or to see it in detail for my sake.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, okay.
So that was the first, and why I was already a bit turned off in the beginning of this episode is that I felt like, this episode has a much too convenient setup to get us into Tulsa 1921. But I think, I'm not sure how it is in the book, of course, because this series is based on a book. But for me, it's very clear that they really wanted to go to Tulsa 1921, which I get, because it's, of course, a very important moment in history. And I liked in that way also that we went there, because it taught us a lot, and it really made us experience it very close by, as it felt, as if you were really there. So for that matter, like also said in my recap, I think this episode is a great history lesson, but a bit less great television show episode. Because I feel in the beginning, it begins already with the D's body will need the blood of the closest relative to restore. So like, easy setup. So we get into the Montrose and Tick story lineage thing. That's like, that's a bit easy writing, I find that. Then they
why then?
Because it's like, the way it's dropped also, like Christina says, now we need the blood of the closest relative. So then there's that there has to be a conversation about Montrose not being the father. I feel that is a bit too easy putting it out there. Like, we need to get into this discussion about the fatherhood of Montrose. How we're going to do it. We're going to have Christina say, we need the blood. I find it an easy solution, so to say.
Because we knew this question is above all these episodes, and now they solve it this way.
Exactly. It's a bit like, I was thinking myself with this episode a lot about Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. I know, Koen, you like it, but I found it also a lot of easy setup there. Like, we're gonna needs the holocron that is with Palpatine, because we want to tell the story about Palpatine. Like here, they wanted to get to Tulsa. We need the Book of Names, and it is in Tulsa, so we will travel back in time. How will we do it? Well, here's Hippolyta, back from nowhere. We don't know from where, but here she is.
Yeah,
we don't know what happened
the
to her.
Hippolyta thing for me was a big... I understand your point of view with the blood thing. I didn't find it annoying at all. So for me, it was easy writing. Maybe I can agree with you, but for me, it wasn't annoying.
We have a lower standard in writing, Koen. Bas is
yeah,
not a writer, so...
Well, we can say that, but he watches
He has a right to speak.
and he's a big fan of Costa, so come on.
Nee, but I think it has something to do, Koen. Like, if it was on its own, just this thing, I could have lived with this. But that's what the famous thing in filmmaking, of course, is the suspension of disbelief. Like, you can give your audience one thing, maybe two things that is hard to believe, but like, yeah, okay, we take that. But I think with this episode, it was too much. That I, at one point, was just out of the episode. I felt like, yeah, okay. Just like with Star Wars, which you love.
I understand that. For me, Rise of Skywalker is still a brilliant movie, but it's a different discussion. No, the thing is, I also was almost out of it exactly the moment when Hippolyta came back, and it was a really cool moment. Like, oh god, she's back, and she also looked really like rough a little bit, and that was cool. But then the moment
for me, it was not a surprise because she said in that episode. Where she was the main character, she said she wants to go back to save Dee.
Yes, but didn't you think
the whole thing that's 200 years and I know everything, that was like it was literally 5 seconds where she threw all the information in.
No, but
nobody's asking anything.
Okay. Oh, so
that's what I also
very weird. Yeah,
that's what I also mean. Like another point of convenient writing for me. Like, okay, but how are we gonna get the machine started? Well, I got superpowers now, so I just hold the cables and I can activate it. Like,
guys, that was explained, right? She was for a long time in this futuristic world with this
very quick.
No, in this episode that was about her. When was it? Number 6?
2 episodes ago, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and then she had these things in her pulses.
In her wrists. Yeah.
In her wrists.
No, that made sense, but it's fine. It's a different thing if you come back to your family and your daughter is almost dying, and then you say in one sentence, "Yeah, I got superpowers now." Like you come home to your wife and suddenly you're Tony Stark. It's like. You need some time to adapt to that, That's what I mean.
Yeah, okay,
that's
like, I'm Batman now, and I'm going to save the world. Bye.
Okay, but you are saying that all the time. That's going too fast. On the other hand, we see every episode.
This thing was really like.
But we see every episode. We see magic. We see monsters. I mean, it's integrated in this world.
Yeah, but it's a different thing with like because we also got slowly used to the monsters and stuff and the magic. And that's also why I didn't like episode 2, because also they went from some weird creatures into like everything is magic, and also Tick was like very okay with it. That also was for me weird, that episode. And now they slowly got it better, and then they had some slower episodes, and that's also why I didn't like the episode with Hippolyta, because me it was completely unbelievable for half of the parts. And now they go again, this woman comes back, and suddenly she's like almost God, which is cool, and it makes sense. The things we saw, of course, already, like the things you had
yeah.
But like also, it was too bomb. That's it.
But is it the thing that you don't understand it, or you found it not good?
I do
storytelling.
I find it not a good way of storytelling. Yeah. For starters, I find, like I said, if the natural progression of this story doesn't feel like this episode for me, the natural progression of the story would be more like, okay, what did Hippolyta actually, because she was gone. She didn't return together with Tick. Where was she? Why was she not exactly back right away with Tick? She just arrived. Where was she in the meantime?
Yeah, the future.
Yeah, okay, but Tick got out of the void, and we saw that Hippolyta was going out of the void, but she didn't get out of the void. She's wanted for murder. That kind of things would have been more natural.
Tick comes back, and he even explains where he was. That he met a woman without help by a woman with a robot hand, and that he met his son with a book. That was more explanation than the woman that was gone for 200 years. It gives like one sentence. That's it.
She was in the future. Yeah, she was in the future. She was not away for 200 years. But
no. She was herself 200 years. She passed while she was away for the present time only a couple of days.
But in general, besides Hippolyta's story, I think the more natural progression will be what we ended on last week and moving forward. And I touched on it a lot of times. I felt we made a sidestep now. This whole episode was about getting the Book of Names. There was not more to it. When it comes to plot, of course, it was a great history lesson with a lot of symbolism and powerful stuff in there. I agree. But when it comes to a TV show and moving the plot forward, it was just about we're going to get the Book of Names. And then it becomes very clear again that they just want to give this history lesson instead of also telling a bigger story. And we're just one episode from the finale. For me...
Yeah, okay. But then you can make an interpretation, what is a bigger story?
Well, yeah, I think you have to start with making a good TV show. I'm not saying the show is not good, but I think that has to be your first priority, and then see how you can put in the history lesson in that, and not first start with the history lesson and see how you can build the story points to get to do that history lesson.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's the wrong order.
I think if you, I said this previous times before, you had 9 episodes now. You should have made 12 episodes. It's all too much propped into 60 minutes. It's the same with the whole story with Ruby and Christina, that also like Letty finds out and it's all okay, and nobody asks anything to each other almost. It's and that's you can say, okay, there's a style we choose, but then it's also what Sven said, like, okay, but what is then more important? Like, they choose in the end then more the history and the symbolism than the story, and you see that now. I think the story gets lost in all the individual episodes trying to teach us something, which is, I find very interesting and cool that they do it.
Of course, yeah.
But we all do, I think. But the problem is then, the story itself is too thin, and some characters also are too thin compared to what it could have been. It doesn't mean it's bad, but seeing that we have great actors we're dealing with, visual effects are awesome. I think there's so much. I think they made a mistake by doing too much in too short time. And I think that's also the way we do things now. I saw the other day, I saw an old movie from the 90s. It was all slower. It explains way more. And I miss that personally a lot. And I think the show is also a bit lacking this, like a flaw by this. Yeah.
But okay, enough. Well, how do you say negative now? Because of course there were also good things on it. I had my trouble with it. But if I may speak for myself, some things I really liked was the Tulsa set design. Set design throughout the whole show is, I think, spot on. All the production design, and I really liked how they recreated Tulsa 1921. Really looked cool. Well, we already touched, yeah.
Yeah, I loved it also. I think really beautiful location. I think it was shot in Atlanta.
You told, yeah.
In the street where Martin Luther King was born, but it used to be the famous Black Wall Street of America, because in Tulsa there was a lot of oil by then, and a lot of African Americans were working there and also benefited from it in some way. And exactly that part of the city was being destroyed. Okay. They could not probably record it there because it was not existing anymore.
No. Yeah, but it was really, really cool how it looked like.
Yeah, I found it also. Yeah,
because I think the street was in Atlanta, but I think when they enter the episode and they look out on the street, I think that was really a set. That must have been a set, and that I really liked the way that looked. It was really cool.
Yeah.
What we already touched on it, the scene with Letty and the fire and that
was very impressive.
Yeah, that was a very impressive scene. Was one line I really liked from the great grandmother who said, "When my great grandson is born, he will be my faith turned into flesh." Yeah, perfect line. I really liked that.
No, it was also there was a nice character they put in there, because it was the way she ended up. Was like, it was again a bit too fast, but the moment they locked into each other and she had faith, and also holding the book of hands, of course, the other one was a spiritual nice thing, and the way they did it, that she burned, it was brutal, but it wasn't disgusting done, like with all too much flesh falling off. It was very very impressive, and the fire itself, it was also the CGI was nicely done, the visual effects, and you felt for her. It was Sven?
The poem was being
very powerful. You really felt it. The lyrics of it, the words of it also were really came in.
Fire by Sanchez, I think it was.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sonia Sanchez.
No,
I believe,
it was very impressive. And you also, I don't know if you guys thought about this, but of course we saw the link, of course, with future and present. When you saw that Tick was, of course, the one that had to be the stranger that beat the shit out of those white guys with the baseball. But I also thought like, so that it didn't change history. But Letty, of course, running away from the white guys, leading to the house of the grandmother. I thought, is she maybe not at fault by accident for them burning their house down? I was thinking, you know.
Yeah, that's why they were also skeptical to accepting her.
Yeah, but I was thinking like if she wasn't there, maybe they wouldn't have burned the house down.
They wouldn't have. Then we get into those time theory things. Back to the Future.
There was a plane coming with bombs, so I think.
Anyway, they would have been fucked. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But about this turning my faith into flesh sentence, I think you can maybe link that to Hippolyta traveling to 200 years in future, and like that there were Black Americans traveling back to 1920.
Yeah.
I think it could tell. You can make an interpretation that this group of people is a bit always on the run, you know, for a better living. And from 1921 till
before even
the 60s, where it's being set to 200 years in future. And 200 years in future, Hippolyta was, she came back with a lot of confidence, finding herself, chased her dreams, found her freedom, and became the strongest version of herself.
Yeah.
And she's going back in time, and she can use this discovery to solve problems.
Yeah, and she even
this story was really symbolize. They tried to symbolize at least, and I took it here and there. I took it a bit out with this episode, and that's what I found. Well, again, nice done, and I think they do this every episode. They try really to force yourself to think about this stuff.
Definitely. And that's what I also mean. Like with a good history lesson, with a good history lesson is not only teaching you the facts, but also making you think on it and those kind of things. But it's just like goosebumps, those kind of things come from storytelling and emotional stuff. And this is theoretical, and it's like I said,
you know, like it's
maybe that can also be that because we are not experiencing it like other people experience it, and I think
definitely
for other people it's more on the surface. It's more, and that's why. For us,
100%.
It's more distant. It's not our country. It's not our history.
That's obvious, Sven. But I do think because if you talk about people that are always on the run, you can say the same. Of course, I'm not going to compare it at all. But that sentence you can also use for the Jewish community, of course, back in history. And if I saw movies or shows about that where they take the time. You do feel for them, even if you're not Jewish at all.
That's the thing, of course. Of course,
that's the thing with this. Like, if you're American, if you're an African American, of course, especially that you know stories from your grandparents from Tulsa, then you feel way more than we do. I understand that. So you're fully right about that. But I do agree what I said before. They are missing. They do two things. One thing, I would like to have way more shows like this, based on completely different stories. Maybe about Asian minorities and problems there, and they mix it also with horror, with science fiction. It's really because the way they do it, the show is, in my opinion, awesome. It's a new thing that I wish they explore more, and they also teach us then history stuff because it's interesting. But then, if they focus, the history is already impressive enough in any kind of bad story.
Yeah. So you mean, well, as you said, they try to put too much in too few minutes.
Yeah, I think if they made now 9 episodes, if you made 5 more and you spread it a bit more out, it would have been better.
Then you don't have to make that convenient writing just because that's the thing. They want to push this. They want to push this in. They know they have to in this. They only have 2 episodes left. Probably a lot to tell. Like, shoot, how we're gonna get there? We're gonna do this, and it feels then too rushed, and you get into easy, convenient writing. So that's for me. I judge it just on. Well, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I did read and study some writing, screenwriting. Books and stuff, and well, they fall into some like basic traps. I think in this episode, at least.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you would do it, if you would take more the time for it, you also wouldn't need that full episode about Korea. Even if it was a really good episode, or the episode about Ruby fully, you could have dosed it more, and also then keep the storyline at bay, which means you get the rush from the storyline. You're following it better, and also you give more time. You get more close. Because imagine if you would see yesterday's episode, because for me, I was very involved with Montrose in my head, because I was thinking, oh my God, imagine this guy that already struggles with his life being a homosexual man in those times, with a son that's maybe not even his, or maybe for fully not. And then also, he has to come back to fucking Tulsa, where almost everybody was murdered that he knows, and I was feeling for him. But if you take that whole thing out and you invest more time in the characters, that will be broader, less thin, I think the show would have been like amazing.
Yeah. Well, I agree on that. Yeah, I think it.
It maybe almost deserves more time.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
The intensity. What they want to let you feel is maybe not reached, and as you say, it deserves more time.
If you compare it to the show that we watched, The Three of Us Dark, that show, in my opinion, sometimes they went too far into the characters, and they give them a lot of depth, which was very good. That I felt like along the 3rd season, they lost a bit. They didn't lose maybe the plot, but the story itself, for me, didn't have the ending it deserved. In this show, I think they do it the other way around. They focus too much on other stuff. And the characters, I think, are worth more time, also because they have
I think they basically they want too much, or they have too little time. It's one of those. But if you have 10 episodes, I think they should have at some points be a bit less ambitious, maybe, and maybe more focused on some things. But I am convenient, or I am confident.
You're convenient?
I'm convenient. Everything's convenient now. I am confident that episode 10 probably will be great. I would be very surprised if they're going to take a sidestep now again. No, like maybe in season 2 we dive in.
Exactly, like a really weird cliffhanger. We'll go to Korea again. I don't know.
No, I think it will be unsatisfying, and in that way that it will in every sense. Will tell you that there's coming a 2nd season, because Biha has to come back. Yeah. So I think, but I don't know if it's for this take, but I think she's gonna twist a part of the plot and in the relationship between Letty and Tick.
It will be interesting, of course, to see what's happening in episode 10 if they will set it up for a 2nd season, because it could also easily turn out one of those shows that never gets the cliffhanger end resolved, because there's still no season 2 ordered by HBO. So it might also very well end after 1 season, and then we're forever stuck with a cliffhanger with a book that also don't bring the answers, because there's no more source material. So
okay, boss, but I don't think nowadays. I think that nowadays they keep all these things secret, and it's already being decided.
You always hear way up front if a season series is prolonged. So it takes very long. This is not usual.
Yeah, okay, but I think maybe that's being thought through then, because I can't imagine that you end a series of 10 episodes without knowing if there's coming a 2nd season.
There's a lot of examples of that. Right. There's a lot of examples of series that ended with a major cliffhanger, and then the channel decided like, no, we're not going on with it, and that was it.
Berlin Station. There are a lot of HBO shows actually that have this problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But
That's
let's
true.
hope it's not for this. Let's hope it's not for this show. But
Costa season 2.
yeah, speaking about that, episode 10, the last episode of this series, we're gonna do a live stream for the first time in our histories channel, our very long history. We're gonna do a live stream.
Yeah,
Yes, come
up.
watch it with us. We're gonna watch it on Tuesday. Tuesday at 8 o'clock is now the plan. Tuesday the 20th of October.
Tell the time zone, my dear.
Oh yeah, that's true. All our American viewers. Sorry, probably we won't have a lot of American viewers. I think now because it's 8 o'clock in Europe, which will be
what time in the States, in the West Coast.
What is it? 6
6
hours.
hours with New York now, I think.
New York 6 hours, I think. Yeah.
The East Coast is
Oh yeah. Well, the people just have to take a day off for us.
We also stay up for your Lakers games, guys. Come on, you can do this.
Exactly. Well, okay, but we're gonna do this live viewing, so join in, and otherwise you can always watch it back, of course. But it would be fun to chat a bit with you in the live chat. We're gonna end this review now. Don't forget to also watch our recap and our breakdown of episode 9, and then we see you next week.